When most grandparents retire, they dream of travel, leisure, and spoiling their grandchildren. But in Amish communities across America, grandparents face a reality that would break the hearts of most modern families. They must follow rules so strict, so emotionally devastating, that many outsiders refuse to believe they're real. These 10 shocking rules reveal a world where love, control, and faith collide in ways most of us will never understand. Shunning grandchildren. The most heartbreaking rule involves their own flesh and blood. When a grandchild leaves the Amish church after baptism, grandparents must participate in shunning. They cannot eat at the same table with a shunned grandchild. They cannot accept gifts, money, or help. They cannot ride in their cars or enter their homes. If a shunned grandchild visits during family gatherings, grandparents must leave the room. Even a simple hug becomes forbidden. The Amish believe maintaining shunning is an act of love, a way to make the wayward grandchild feel the weight of their decision and potentially return. The pain never fades, but accepting it without complaint demonstrates faith. Grandparents who break shunning face discipline themselves. The community watches, and weakness is not tolerated. No photographs. Amish grandparents will never see a photograph of their grandchildren. Not a single baby picture, not a school portrait, not a wedding photo. This rule stems from biblical commandments against graven images and the belief that photographs promote vanity. Grandparents must rely entirely on memory to preserve their grandchildren's faces. As memory fades with age, those faces blur and merge, especially in families with 10 or 15 grandchildren. When a grandchild dies, there is no photograph to hold. When grandchildren move to distant settlements, grandparents have nothing but memory. Modern grandparents with thousands of photos cannot comprehend this loss. The Amish accept it as necessary sacrifice, believing eternal souls matter more than temporary faces. Limited medical care. Amish grandparents routinely refuse treatments that could extend their lives, viewing aggressive medical intervention as interference with God's will. Cancer treatments, dialysis, surgery for non-life-threatening conditions, even basic medications for chronic pain often get refused. Not because they want to die, but because accepting every possible treatment demonstrates lack of faith. When health declines, they prefer dying at home surrounded by family rather than in hospitals. They plan for death years in advance, making burial clothes, choosing hymns, designating which grandchildren will serve as pallbearers. This acceptance of death as natural transition shapes their final years profoundly. Constant work. Retirement doesn't exist in Amish culture. Grandparents in their 70s and 80s continue working from dawn until dark. Grandmothers cook 3 meals daily for families of 15 to 20 people. They sew and mend all clothing. They preserve hundreds of jars of food each summer. They provide full-time childcare. They clean houses without vacuum cleaners and maintain gardens, all while managing arthritis and accumulated injuries. Grandfathers continue barn work, feeding livestock, mucking stalls, and repairing equipment. They mentor younger men in carpentry and farming. They split wood and handle physically demanding tasks that most modern men half their age couldn't manage. This constant work prevents them from becoming burdens. It maintains their authority. It demonstrates that faith provides strength even when the body weakens. The physical toll is enormous, but they accept it as the price of remaining useful until death. Controlling money. Money flows through Amish grandparents' hands in ways that would horrify modern families. Grandparents often maintain control over family finances well into their 80s, deciding how money gets spent and which grandchildren deserve help. Adult children and grandchildren must often ask permission before making significant purchases. A young couple wanting to buy a farm typically needs grandparent approval because grandparents control family wealth accumulated across generations. Inheritance becomes leverage for maintaining faithfulness. Grandchildren who remain Amish and marry within the faith receive inheritance. Those who leave forfeit their share. Bank accounts often remain in grandparents' names, even when the money technically belongs to adult children. This system maintains family unity and prevents individualism. Young people can't simply leave if they're financially dependent on structures controlled by grandparents. The power this provides shapes life choices through financial pressure that operates invisibly to outsiders but powerfully within families. Choosing grandchildren spouses. When Amish grandchildren begin courting, grandparents possess effective veto power over marriages they consider unsuitable. The investigation begins quietly. Grandparents ask questions about the potential spouse's family throughout the community. What is their reputation? How faithfully do they follow rules? Are there genetic problems? For grandsons' potential wives, they assess domestic skills, submission to authority, and family compatibility. For granddaughters' potential husbands, they examine work ethic, temperament, and spiritual seriousness. When grandparents disapprove, they have multiple tools: direct confrontation, expressing disappointment, conversations with bishops who can apply pressure, threatening to withhold inheritance, making clear the marriage will create family tension. Most young people submit to grandparent preferences because the alternative is too painful. This ensures marriages strengthen rather than threaten community cohesion. Modern people view this as controlling. The Amish view it as protection against divorce and family breakdown. Living in Dotty House. Privacy is a sacrifice Amish grandparents make without negotiation. When they reach their late 60s, they move into the Dotty House, a small attached house built onto their children's property. The proximity is intentional and total. Grandparents can see who visits. They hear conversations. They observe how grandchildren are being raised. They maintain constant daily involvement. Meals are often eaten together. Grandchildren stream in and out constantly. There are no locked doors, no boundaries modern people consider basic rights. This arrangement ensures grandparents never become isolated. It provides childcare and domestic help. It allows them to pass on knowledge through daily interaction. It maintains their authority because they're present to observe and correct. But the cost is profound. Grandparents surrender any possibility of independent living. They cannot make decisions without considering family impact. Their final decades are lived in a space that feels simultaneously like belonging and confinement. No technology connection. When grandchildren move to distant Amish settlements, or, worse, leave the faith entirely and move to cities, Amish grandparents face separation with none of the technological bridges modern families take for granted. No phone calls, no video chats, no text messages, no emails, no social media updates. Letters only, if even those are permitted under shunning rules. This creates an isolation that modern grandparents with smartphones filled with grandchild photos and daily video calls cannot comprehend. Grandchildren's lives unfold hundreds of miles away, and grandparents know nothing except what arrives in occasional letters. Illnesses, achievements, daily struggles, moments of joy, all happen in silence. The grandchild who moved to Iowa 3 years ago might be unrecognizable now. The grandchild who left the faith might have married, had children, bought a house, and the grandparents will never see any of it. When grandchildren offer to buy them phones or computers to stay connected, Amish grandparents refuse. Not because they don't want contact, but because accepting technology means compromising the very identity that defines their entire lives. They chose separation from the world. Technology would breach that separation and threaten community cohesion. The pain of this choice reveals itself during illness or crisis. When a distant grandchild gets seriously ill, grandparents might not know for weeks. When a grandchild who left the faith faces tragedy, grandparents hear about it through indirect channels long after they could have helped. The inability to be present, to offer comfort, to fulfill the grandparent role that seems most basic, represents one of the deepest sacrifices Amish life requires. Yet they accept it, because maintaining separation from modern technology means maintaining Amish identity, because making exceptions would eventually dissolve the boundaries that protect their way of life. Because the pain of separation is the price of faithfulness. Modern grandparents who panic if they don't receive daily photo updates cannot fathom this acceptance. But Amish grandparents have made their choice, and they live with its consequences until death, teaching submission. Amish grandparents carry a sacred responsibility that modern families would find deeply troubling. They are the primary teachers of submission, obedience, and self denial to their grandchildren. This isn't gentle guidance, it's systematic training in suppressing individual will in favor of community harmony and divine authority. Grandmothers specifically focus on granddaughters, teaching them that a woman's role requires submission to father, husband, church, and God. They correct granddaughters who speak too boldly, who question authority, who show too much independence. They model silent endurance, teaching by example how to submit without complaint. They praise granddaughters who demonstrate proper meekness and correct those who resist. Grandfathers teach grandsons that leadership means responsibility, not freedom. That male authority comes with obligation to provide, protect, and maintain community standards. That individual desires matter less than family needs. They correct grandsons who show too much ambition, too much interest in the outside world, too much questioning of tradition. Both grandmothers and grandfathers have authority to discipline grandchildren directly without asking parents' permission first. Physical discipline remains acceptable in many Amish communities, and grandparents can administer it when they judge behavior warrants correction. Their standards often exceed parents' standards, and parents are expected to support grandparent discipline even when they disagree with its severity. This teaching uses shame and praise strategically. Grandchildren who resist submission face public correction, disappointed looks, withdrawal of affection, and clear communication that their behavior threatens their place in the family. Grandchildren who demonstrate proper submission receive praise, special attention, and assurance that they're becoming the kind of person the community values. Modern child development experts would view much of this as emotionally manipulative and damaging to healthy identity formation. The Amish view it as essential protection against the pride, individualism, and selfishness they see destroying modern society. Grandparents believe they're saving their grandchildren's souls by teaching them to die to self before self-will destroys them, preparing to die. While modern grandparents often avoid discussing death, Amish grandparents begin detailed death preparation in their 60s and continue refining it until they die. This isn't morbid obsession. It's practical and spiritual readiness for the transition they view as life's ultimate purpose. Grandmothers sew their own burial clothes years before death, choosing fabric that meets ordnung requirements, stitching seams that will hold through eternity. These aren't clothes quickly assembled after death. They're carefully made, thoughtfully designed, and stored in preparation for the moment they'll be needed. Some grandmothers make multiple sets, updating as styles change or replacing sets they decide don't meet standards. They choose hymns for their funerals, discussing preferences with family so everyone knows which songs honored them in life and should honor them in death. They select pallbearers from among grandsons, a honor that carries responsibility for literally bearing the grandmother into eternity. They discuss burial plot preferences, how they want their belongings distributed, and which Bible verses should be read. This preparation includes teaching grandchildren about death acceptance. Grandparents talk openly about dying, frame it as graduation rather than tragedy, and model the peaceful acceptance they hope grandchildren will demonstrate when their own time comes. They refuse life support discussions because there's no question. Let death come naturally when God calls. They specify they want to die at home, in their own bed, surrounded by family rather than machines. The final weeks of life become teaching opportunities. Grandparents bless grandchildren individually, offering final wisdom, expressing love within cultural bounds, and releasing them to continue the faith. They whisper final instructions, share family stories one last time, and demonstrate through their dying how an Amish person leaves this world. When death comes, the grandparents have orchestrated every detail. The burial clothes wait in the drawer. The hymns are known. The pallbearers are chosen. The death isn't a crisis requiring emergency decisions, but the culmination of years of preparation. Modern families scrambling to plan funerals while grief overwhelms them cannot comprehend this level of advanced preparation. But for Amish grandparents, preparing to die well is their final gift to the grandchildren they'll leave behind.